So as you learn more about spirituality and the raising of your consciousness, it can be good to have in mind a super clear picture of what lower consciousness versus higher consciousness looks like in a person. And to highlight this difference, I want to bring in two imaginary characters. The first is going to have a higher state of consciousness, and for this character, I want you to imagine a wise man, a sage, an enlightened person, someone who has worked a lot on transcending their own mind. And then our second character, they're going to have a lower state of consciousness. And this person, I want you to imagine someone who gives off the vibe that maybe they are secretly an NPC, right? A deeply unaware person who lives most of their life kind of on autopilot without really thinking for themselves or questioning their own mind. So we've got our two characters. Let's now bring in a scenario. And the one that I want to begin with is the scenario of being punched in the face. Now, on the one hand, maybe this is, too much. And that's because for anyone to remain conscious in a situation where your physical survival is threatened, it's actually really, really hard. It's maybe a bit unrealistic for most people to do this. But that's the thing, this video isn't for most people. It's for people who are curious and can sense that raising their consciousness would create new possibilities and levels of freedom in life. So we're going to stick with it. Now, let's imagine this scenario happening, first of all, with our NPC friend. Let's say he gets punched in the face. And what happens to him? What does he do? Well, because he's in a lower state of consciousness, the ego within him is going to immediately and instinctively flare up and is going to get him to react in a very defensive and maybe even aggressive manner. Now, why does this happen exactly to our NPC friend? Well, what is going on internally that makes him have this kind of reaction? Well, within his direct experience, his consciousness is low. His awareness is low. And what this means is that he is quick to react to his mind. Because for him, the identification that he has with his own mind is so strong that he's unable to see beyond it. Right? That is all that's true for him. And really, this comes down to how with lower consciousness, a person becomes entangled with their own mind. And this prevents them from having this kind of separation or distance, which we might call mindfulness or consciousness. So low consciousness essentially means that ego is your main point of reference, and that is what you go to, that is where you go to instinctively when something happens to you, especially something that is emotionally triggering. Now, what you may find with this, with having lower consciousness, is that it keeps you in kind of like a straitjacket, where you're not really able to transcend the suffering of your own mind. Because honestly, it just feels too real. Right? And this brings us to the next insight, which is the lower your consciousness, the more real your mind seems. And this is why most people, by the way, who are of a lower consciousness tend to complain about their lives because problems to them seem very like a very, very real thing and not something that is self-created. However, if you were to be more of a mindful, more high consciousness person, what you can do is you can bring awareness to these problems and realize that it is in fact your mind that is constructing them, right? Problems don't actually exist outside of you. They only ever exist within you. And so it's the raising of your consciousness that can help you dissolve these and eventually overcome them. So now to flip things around, we have the wise man's experience of the situation. And this is where it gets interesting. So the wise man is going about his day and boom, suddenly he's punched in the face. How does he react here? Well, first of all, is he going to be reacting or is he going to be responding? Yes, he's going to be a little bit startled. Anyone would be in that position. But interestingly, he has enough presence of mind to pause and analyze the situation before he chooses to act. Now, again, this is where it gets very, very fascinating, because what does presence of mind actually mean here? Maybe you've heard this phrase, but what is the true meaning of it? Well, if you really, really think about it, what it actually means is not presence of mind, but presence of consciousness, right? Because if he had presence of mind or ego, he would be extremely reactive like our NPC friend. But our wise man, he has presence of consciousness. And this means he has greater distance from the lower mind, which affords him a certain kind of calm and a certain detachment from the situation. I'd also mention that presence is a good word here too, because presence indicates that the thing is happening now. And that's very, very true, because when you do become aware or when you become conscious, that does actually happen in the now. It happens in the moment. And so it's really good to realize that you are equipped with the most high awareness or high consciousness when you can feel yourself being really deeply present in the moment. It really does come down to presence. Another aspect of higher consciousness is that things, they don't matter as much to you. And that's because to the higher consciousness person, meaning is assigned and not baked into reality itself. So this means after being punched in the face, our wise man, he is able to decide how he assigns meaning to the situation. Maybe, for example, he decides to reframe it as a situation or an experience which has grown him as a person. Or maybe as an opportunity for him to practice stoicism or non-reactivity. Right? These become options now because to our wise man, he's not a victim to the bitching and moaning of his own mind. He knows, that his mind is not going to be happy with that, but he also knows better than to overthink or take that kind of thing personally. So his higher consciousness is giving him this ability to be very detached and effectively stay at arm's length from his own mind. And that is really what high consciousness is about. It's about being aware of your mind, so aware that you can actually begin to live beyond it. So to wrap up, I want to leave you with the following wisdom. The higher your consciousness, the greater the freedom that you have in life. Whereas the lower your consciousness, the more ego and suffering you have in your life. It really is about sensing that this is the case and then working on yourself in such a way where you can be as high consciousness as possible. That is effectively what the good life is all about. So that's it for me. If you've enjoyed this one and you would like more videos, then my friend, please do subscribe.